Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. On this 30th day of April, I wanted to skip my, excuse me, wanted to skip my intro tonight. Facebook, as usual, was starting to mute my intro music. So what I'll do is I'll just talk, give you my preview, and then we'll take our breaks and whatnot. But anyways, I got a great show with you for tonight. The public relations nightmare for Bill Belichick. I got a thought about that on his horrendous interview with 24-year-old girlfriend. What's her name? Jordan Hudson, I want to say. I'll give you some thoughts on that. He put a statement out today. CBS put a statement out today. The Athletic had a report that I want to say she had something to do with nixing the deal with Hard Knocks going to University of North Carolina. That would have been great PR that would have been good for recruiting. Give you my thoughts on that. Of course, this Schroeder Sanders thing, this is turning into like one story on top of another. Defensive coordinator for the son there of the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator, prank calls Shedeur Sanders. Of course, I'll talk about his fall there all the way to the 5th round. Get to that. And Shannon Sharpe, story last week. I wanted to talk about it this past week. Didn't get a chance to. Thoughts on him being sued for $50 million just a few days after rumor was from Front Office Sports he was going to get a $100 million contract after his volume contract ends. So a lot to get to tonight. I'll comment a little bit on the draft as a whole and, of course, the NBA playoffs. But let's take our first and only break. I'll be back here momentarily, and we will hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the Sharp-Dressed Man and the Big Story Breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports. Thanks.
All righty then. I'm back here live. So we'll start with the story that had a little bit of news today. How about that, okay? Bill Belichick is still arguably the greatest coach of all time. I still think he is. Listen, Brady was a 6th-round pick for a reason. I think that Belichick, it was a good timing there. Belichick's defensive, Bill Parcells never won a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. Keep that in mind. He is a defensive guru. I know he struggled post Brady. I still got faith in the guy. I know he's 73 years old. So he's got this new book coming out talking about his life and, of course, the game of football. And I'll definitely get it, read it, and probably review it here on the program at some point. So, but anyways, this very awkward interview coming up. Let me get to my notes before I get too far off. Awkward moment here in this interview was 24-year-old girlfriend Jordan Hudson. Like I said in the tease there, calls he had to put out a statement today, and here it is Wednesday, a few days later. This thing happened on Sunday, and then CBS ended up putting out a statement about what to ask and what not to ask. But let's play the big awkward moment here that I got off TikTok. Check this out.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on.
I mean, and he just sits there and and I know that he's saying that he was told, and I want to say I actually took their statement here from CBS on this thing, that Bill Belichick released a statement regarding the CBS morning interview, says that it was a false narrative that his girlfriend Jordan Hudson was attempting to control the interview. It was selectively edited in clips. So he had to put that statement out here, you know. He says, I got this from ESPN. I clearly communicated with my publicist at Simon & Schuster that any promotional interviews I participated in would agree to focus solely on the contents of the book, Belichick said on Wednesday. Unfortunately, that expectation was not honored. During the interview, CBS on Wednesday issued its own statement denying that there were in the preconditions or limitations to the interview. When we agreed to speak with Mr. Belichick, CBS says, it was a wide-ranging interview, CBS News said in the statement. There are no preconditions, limitations to the conversation. This was confirmed repeatedly with this publisher before the interview took place and after it was completed. The fact that was already said, listen, whether she's supposed to be doing her job, I don't know if she's got the air quote official title of public relations and whatnot. You get guys like Colin Cowherd saying, well, he understands she's his handler. She's a PR person. She's young. She's posting the photos on Instagram. She's going to help recruit players to this team. I think that is just that is not on brand per se with Belichick. I think Belichick, they have a general manager there. This is coming more and more. I mean, this is developing by the day with college football now, where it's more about the NIL. It's more about the general manager doing the recruiting through the NIL and him basically just having players come to him and speak on him about his system and whatnot. I don't think that she's really going to help that much out with recruiting. Some will say, well, he's caught up in the infatuation with her air quote sex. And listen, I've said that from the get-go, that I have zero problems with the age gap and all that. That's his business. I'm okay with it, as long as a person, obviously you got two consenting adults. I'm okay with that. I was okay with it when I first read about it. I say that guys have two different answers. My motto is you've got one answer if somebody's asked about the big age gap, 49 years and whatnot. When you're with your friends and not around the wife or girlfriend who may be your age or maybe a little older or whatnot, that's one answer, which is, hey, that's disgusting. I've got a daughter that age, or she could be my daughter, blah, blah, blah. That's the answer with the wife around. When you're around your boys, your friends, that's high five. Hey, man, you got you a nice young chick. You're going to be able to keep up with her. Kudos. She's going to keep you young, keep you forever young, like the song says, right? I think that is true. And I noticed, I was listening, I just happened to catch Buck Sexton on the Clay and Buck show. I want to credit him for using this term I heard today. He says he's not a big fan of the whole age police, and I'm not either, where who's to say how old, the age gap, 9 years and so. No, that's too much of a cutoff. Whose business is it of anybody else's? I'm of that. Hey, listen, and I'm going to talk about Shannon Sharpe later on in the program. I've dated, for the record, and I've dated 15, 20 years older. I've dated 15, 20 years younger. I'm 43. Do the math there. I have no issue with it either way. By the way, family that watches this, sister, mother, not everything I say on this program is everything I'm going to comment on this. So if you call me and start prowling me, who did you date 15 years younger or 15 years older? It's going to be none of your business. So that's a little public service announcement while I finish up this rant here. Okay. So, folks, do not call me and ask me any of my business, because you're not going to get any answers from me. As you can see, I'm pro Belichick there. My problem is this is not on brand with Belichick. Having some young 24-year-old shut him down and him not being in control. His brand is control. The mad genius, the evil genius, whatever you want to call him. Going back to his days with the Giants there as the coordinator under Bill Parcells. I saw the documentaries, the two Bills, Belichick, and then, of course, him going up into New England and whatnot, putting in those brilliant game plans, always knowing the answer to the question before it's answered, whether he gave them permission or not. It was a simple question. When did you all meet? How did y'all meet? Well, we've already knew. We've read it on the report. They met on an airplane a few years ago. She could have said that. It was, one thing led to another. It signed something for me. We became good friends, got mutual interest, and I'm learning from him. He's learning from me. Could have ended it that way. I wouldn't have brought her in there, not unless she was going to be part of the interview. She's sitting behind him. He doesn't need a PR person. I mean, yeah, everybody's got an assistant. I know Mike Westhoff, author there, played for our guy that's a longtime special teams coordinator. He used to be with the Jets and then with Denver before he retired. I would have to go through his assistant and be able to talk to him. I get that. But the whole thing with her being there, cutting off on the interview, it was a bad look. For him to put out a statement and CBS put out a statement, that's bad. And again, according to The Athletic, I don't know the details because there's not really specifics on here, but she supposedly had something to do with stopping them from getting the Hard Knocks thing, which have been excellent for recruiting and whatnot. Stuff like that's going to give you, you want that logo out as much as possible. Now, of course, you're still going to have the NIL stuff. You're still going everything I just said at the beginning of the program about they're still going to have to beat up with him, learn his scheme, and see if they want to deal with him on a one-on-one basis. But he's not going around knocking on doors and driving long road trips up in the country trying to meet up with high school football players. He's not having to do that. And I wouldn't want him to do that at 73 anyways. But anyways, so he's got to have a sit down with her, to use a mob term. They got to have a sit down and say, we're going to have to get you some kind of other title when I do this book push here. On the next interview, I wouldn't have her present. If you do bring her present as the girlfriend and sit there and interview together and just be open. You'll sell more books if you talk about how you met. A lot of people admire that. A lot of people are disgusted by it. Like he said in the interview before that question, I don't care what people, if you don't care what people think about it, why does she not answer the question? So just don't bring her in there and just do the interview straight up about the book. But that hairstyle, it looks like that he's out of control. He's got to fix that. That's a bad, bad look. Even Charles Barkley said he's a little concerned about Belichick. Listen up. This is Charles Barkley on the Dan Patrick show today, talking about this very thing. Listen up. It may be a little low, but I can tell you what is being said if it doesn't come through, but I think it will. Here we go.
He's the greatest. What is Bill Belichick doing? Well, this is a very slippery subject for me because Bill's one of my really good friends. I'm not sure what's going on. He's been a great friend for me for a long time. We've been friends since he coached for the Browns. I think he got to be very careful right now. This is starting to be on a very slippery slope. He's the greatest football coach ever for him and Nick Saban, for college Nick Saban, for Bill, the NFL. Yeah, I from what I'm hearing, it's starting to be a very slippery slope. And I never talk about people's personal relationship. That's another rule I got. But I will admit, I'm a little concerned with some of the stuff that's going on. And I might actually reach out to him and make sure everything's good. But I am concerned from what I'm hearing. Because, it's not a good look right now. I'll admit that.
And he's such a control freak.
Like Dan Patrick said, and he's such a control freak, I mean, he's concerned because he looks like he's losing control, where he's that much in fact. And if she don't want to go for this, I'd just end this thing right now. And you say, well, he's 73. He left his other girlfriend. It may be too lonely. He's going to be coaching in North Carolina. He's going to be around a lot of other young women closer to his age, closer to that chick's age that are legal. Love to go out and have a good time with Bill Belichick. He's got connections to throughout the league. He's going to meet people. I doubt that's going to be the case where he's so infatuated with her and Erica. And I'm cleaning it up. There's some other phraseologies I can use for that, but I'm not. I try to keep it clean, stay classy, San Diego, like the anchor man would say, right? But so it's not just me to think that was cringy. Fix it. I still got faith in Bill to get it done. Just wanted to comment on it. Okay. All righty then. Let's move on to more prevalent football stories. So I talked about the issues that I'm reading and hearing about before the draft. You all just watch this show. I brought this stuff up. I brought up the fact that he was. I also brought up the fact that Deion Sanders said about Shedeur that, hey, he didn't want to play in cold weather environments. We kind of thought he was halfway joking, but this stuff was being said by Deion himself. Didn't want to play for certain organizations. He said he's going to steer him away from it. He mentioned the weather situation, although he's playing in Colorado. But, the season ends a little sooner, but he still didn't want to play there. So he comes up with all that. Now he's kind of changed his tune once we got into the new year and closer to draft day and the interview process. But apparently it was a big deal, and he was actually purposely tanking these interviews. Listen to what Tom Pelissero said Friday after he didn't go in the first round. Okay, let me go ahead and get this, and we will play this one if I can get it going here. I want to say, here we go. Listen up. This is from NFL Network here, about basically him reporting about him just not going with the NFL rules on certain games and whatnot, and how to go about with these interviews. This is from the NFL Network.
Leads when Shedeur Sanders did not go in the first round. I would fairly tell you it is a surprise that he is still on the board at the start of day 3. Philosophically, some teams feel like if you were drafting at the quarterback position specifically, if you think you've got a starter, you take him in round 1. If you're drafting somebody to be your backup, you don't want to do that until day 3. I spoke last night with one general manager who is considering taking Shedeur Sanders today. He pointed back all the way to March 2024. It's something that Shedeur's father, Deion Sanders, said on a podcast talking about both Shedeur and Travis Hunter, saying that if they are drafted by a team that they don't want to go to, he's going to step in and pull an Eli, meaning force those players to not actually go to that team and try to get them traded. throughout the pre-draft process, Shedeur Sanders very much proceeded as if he was dictating to clubs where he was going to go rather than how the draft works, which is the other way around. And there were a bunch of opportunities missed at the various checkpoints through that pre-draft process. Go all the way back to All-Star season. Instead of going to the Senior Bowl, he went to the East-West Shrine Bowl in his backyard in Dallas. Despite an NFL memo saying if you go to these All-Star games, you have to practice, Shedeur chose not to. At the Combine, it is now well documented some of his formal interviews did not go well. One assistant coach told me in all his years it was the worst formal interview he'd ever been through. People said that Shedeur was trying to dictate how he wanted things to go and made them feel small. Even at the Pro Day, the entire Big 12 had an event in Dallas. Shedeur was there, but did not work out. He had a showcase instead in Colorado, all of which is to say, for a player who had a variety of questions both about the talent level, how he would fit into an NFL system, how he would adjust from his play style in college, but also about the potential culture shock of, for the first time, play for someone who is not his father. There were opportunities that Shedeur Sanders could have taken there. He seemed to feel as if he was in an elite category where he could choose the few teams he wanted to go to.
And he's not John Elway. You know, the knock on him was not as athletic as some of these other, not on Jalen Monroe, not the arm strength of a Cam Ward per se, not even the athleticism of a Jackson Dart. All right. So basically, in a nutshell, his talent did not outweigh the ego. His talent simply did not outweigh the demands, the ego, the entitlement. It simply did not outweigh it, you know? And here's another thing that people aren't talking about. So you draft this guy that he's already, we just played, being combative about not following the rules. You got to practice if you want to play in the East-West Shrine game. He didn't want to practice there, okay? Telling teams which way you want to go to. Also, Colin Cowherd said, one of his contacts said that, I want to add into that report, Sanders was asked about a play at one team. And what did he do wrong there? And he couldn't explain the play, why he did what he did, what these guys do. And I mentioned this before. I want to say with the Mad New Yorker, but going back to the Hard Knocks with the Giants, where you had head coach Brian DeBall during the draft process, they took the cameras in, the interview process in the combine or whatever, and they went into the film room and started, showing some of the plays. Hey, where did you go wrong here? What should you do here? They get them to draw up plays here. They go through the audibles. They go through all the reads. Jalen Daniels aced that part. He was very good last year. Apparently, Brian Callahan said Cam Ward aced that. He was very good at what he did wrong, and he had a very good football acumen and had an answer for everything. That's why one of the reasons why he went number one, Blatt, plus his film and whatnot, and the throws that he was making. But going back to the Shedeur Sanders, he basically said, well, maybe you shouldn't draft me then. So he's coming in there with a combative-like attitude. Beyond combative-like, if you say something like that, that's very combative for a guy that, and like Tom Pelestro said, this guy's played for his dad most of his life. He's played for his own dad. So if you're comparing him to an Eli didn't play for his dad at Ole Miss. He didn't play for his dad. Peyton Manning didn't play for his dad at Tennessee. They both had their own coaches, So acting like you know more than the coach. Now, Eli or Peyton he had an issue one time where he supposedly called a coach an idiot in one of his, I don't know if it was in high school or maybe one of those junior high leagues or whatever. And of course, Archie made him go back and apologize. Deion, very self-assured player. A lot of that's rubbed off on his son. but you could get away with that when you're arguably one of the greatest corners of all time, Eli or Dion, and he's not. He's not, essentially. And, if you look at where he was finally drafted, it was the owner that stepped in. If you look back at Cleveland, Jimmy Haslam basically stepped in. You could see the collapse there from Andrew Berry and Stefanski and the scouting, their war room or whatever you want to call it. They looked like golf claps. They didn't look too excited to draft him. That's more like him saying, yeah, I'm going to draft him. He wants to create a buzz, that owner there. Remember, they drafted Dylan Gabriel back in the 3rd round, and they signed Joe Flacco and, of course, the guy that used to play with Pittsburgh here. He's already slipping my mind here. Kenny Pickett, and, of course, Deshaun Watson's injured. I think as soon as they can get everything squared away numbers-wise, I guess they'll move on from Watson. Probably had to cut him. It turns out to be a disaster, and like I said, I was wrong about that. But he's got a good shot to make the team, but he's going to have an attitude adjustment. He's going to really have to step it up here. But like I said, apparently this was more than just a small exaggeration. He was really, really tanking these interviews, and it simply did not outweigh his talent level. The other part of this was, of course, the prank call. Wow. Okay. Oh, by the way, for all the people saying this was race related, and by the way, I'll say this about that side aspect of it: the everything is racist crowd. I notice it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Those voices are getting lighter and lighter because it's such a dumb argument. There's no proof of it. Stephen A. Smith, he made a decision a long time ago. He just wants to say whatever he thinks is going to get him trending online. I don't think he believes half the people like Steven Jackson. I thought about it and I was looking into that, and I thought of collusion with the owners and all that. Although Boomer Esiason said that, not all the owners got together and said something, talked to each other, but he said he did hear some owners giving general managers the command, do not to draft this guy, take him off your board. They just didn't want to deal with the circus, They didn't want to deal with all that was going on with Sanders. But, you got guys like Steven Jackson, former NBA player. He's played with the Spurs and whatnot. And Stephen A. Smith. That's your collusion. And so that argument really it just didn't get the noise that it used to, And Steven Jackson's IQ, in my opinion, is barely above Forrest Gump, So I kind of don't take what he says with a grain of salt. And Stephen A. Smith, he just, that's real one. He's when you hear the term gas bag, that's him. He just wants to be, trending, and he likes to say outlandish things, and he don't really believe what he's saying and whatnot. But all that being said, I still don't think Schroeder Sanders should have got prank called by this defensive coordinator, and I got to get the guy's name here, for the Atlanta Falcons. It was his son. So apparently the NFL gives these players cell phones so they won't get prank called. All right. They give these guys players, the players' phones so they won't get prank called. So this guy's son here, defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbricht's son, Jax Ulbricht, got a hold of his number, got it in his laptop, but I don't know why the defensive coordinator would have a quarterback's number. I don't know. But he got into this thing and prank called Shedeur Sanders, and also prank called some other players too, by the way. Tyler Warren was on one of them. Abdul Carter got prank called. But So the NFL did what I would have said if they didn't, but they beat me to it. I didn't, the NFL fined the Atlanta Falcons, and they find this coordinator. It says, hey, it's your responsibility to keep up with the phone number. Here's him apologizing, the coordinator, for himself and his son today.
First of all, I'd like to publicly apologize to Shedeur and Sam's family for what occurred. Second of all, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Blank.
So he says that's a low cut there, and it probably won't come up. Apologize to Shedeur. Apologize to the Blank family. Yeah, you should, Coach. You got to keep up with your kid. Now, his son is 21-year-old kid there, and I think that's too immature. That's really too old to be doing something like that. I mean, I've prank called people before when I was 10, 12, maybe 13, 14, not even past 15. I think it's pretty stupid. One time we did prank call. There was a scene out of oh God, what's the name of this movie? It was a movie with Keanu Reeves. It was really funny. It was a movie with Keanu Reeves, and I think it was something where these guys got in this phone booth. Chad, he got in his phone, and I can't. It'll come to me later on. But anyways, these guys are calling. The other guy never made it as a star, but they're in the phone booth, and so he's calling the operator. It says, operator, can I have the number for 911? 911. And the operator's like, 911? We thought that was funny. So we would go to a payphone and say, operator coming out. And they're like, what? Hey, we know who you are. We got your number, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, yeah, well, we're at a payphone booth. Catch us time to get somebody out there. But at 11, 12, but 21, come on, man. These guys worked their whole life, not the whole life, but there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to make it to the point where the NFL gives you a phone to possibly get drafted. I don't know what kind of punishment he could do to a 21-year-old to ground him, take some money away or something, make him pay for some of it. I don't know, but it's pretty embarrassing, especially if you're trying to get trying to keep your job in the NFL that plays. Some of these guys make close to $1 million a year as defensive coordinators in the NFL. But that being said, Shedeur forgave the guy. It is what it is. There was fines given out, a lot of embarrassment. There's a lot of public. And the fact that the son, streamed it really gets under my skin, But I would definitely think of a punishment there for him for that. Like I said, it was other players that got involved as well with that horrible prank call. It ain't the end of the world, but it is pretty stupid to do. It's a pretty dumb thing to do, especially for a 21-year-old. I think he'd grow out of it by then. But as far as Shedeur, listen, hopefully this will be a wake-up call for him. I think he's got a shot to start. I don't think Flacco's going to stay. I think they'll do away with Deshaun Watson. Kenny Pickett's a backup, and they may trade Dylan Gabriel somewhere. So somebody's going to get traded, and a lot of guys going to get cut, and you'll probably have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. My guess is maybe Shedeur will start this year or next year for the Cleveland Browns if he can play. But if this don't motivate him, he's not that serious about football from the get-go. That's my take on Shedeur. I like his processing skills. I would have took a chance on him. That high completion percentage, that stuff is what works in the NFL, But I've heard some comparisons, and maybe he's like an Andy Dalton guy. So maybe maybe he is just a backup. And, you know, I think Colin Cowherd mentioned this the other day that, you know, there's so many guys around the NFL and the media are friends with Deion, and they didn't want to tell him the truth that his son's not that good of an air quote NFL prospect. So it's a story to monitor. It's definitely a story to monitor in a nutshell. Okay. All righty then. Speaking of scandals, listen, this Shannon Sharpe story I wanted to get to the other day, and I'm going to get to now. So, listen, I do a lot of driving on my day job. I do Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was the name of that movie. And then you had Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I knew I'd remember that. I thought that was a pretty good movie. But anyways, where they get in the phone booth and stuff. It was good in the early 90s, whatever. So, okay. Shannon Sharpe. Going back, like I said, I drive for my day job all day, pick up medical supplies. I pick up, lab work and everything. Listen to a lot of podcasts and whatnot. And now even when I'm doing Uber on the side between runs, I'll pop in a podcast or whatever, and then I'll put back to the radio for the riders. Shannon Sharpe's probably got the best podcast out there when it comes to the interviews. I know a lot of people like Joe Rogan, big time Joe Rogan and everything. And I do listen to some of the new stuff. There's actually, I know it was just one series, but the Talking Sopranos podcast with Steve Sciarippa and Michael Imperioli is great too, by the way. I'm re-listening to that because it's so funny. But anyways, Sharpe, really good show. Lavelle Crawford brings comedians on. That's something I want to try to emulate. I had Crochet Cladd on. Hopefully bring her kids back with her. The Cat Williams had 89 million views. This guy is a megastar. He said it himself. He said, man, I'm more famous now than I ever was as a player. And remember, this guy he's won 3 Super Bowls, 2 with the Denver Broncos and 1 with the against our Titans here in Nashville, Chad. One, which really ticks me off. But anyways, earlier last week, it was announced that when his volume deal runs out with the podcaster with Colin Cowherd, he's looking to get, according to Front Office Sports, $100 million deal. And I think he's worth it. But the kind of views that he's got, like I said, 89 million views there for that Cat Williams interview going back last year. But that's not, he's got some funny interviews there. But then after that, a few days later, a $50 million lawsuit for sexual assault come about with him. And according to people.com, which is People magazine, another woman accused Shannon Sharpe of sexual assault and defamation suit. Make it so no other man would want me. A woman suing Shannon Sharpe for alleged defamation also alleges in a complaint that the NFL Hall of Famer sexually assaulted her in 2010. Michelle Evans filed a lawsuit against Sharpe in 2023, nearly 2 years before another woman suing under the name Jane Doe accused him of raping lawsuit in Nevada. So now you're talking 3 here. This Michelle Evans filed a suit against him in New York in 2020. There 2 years before another woman suing him. Jane Doe, that's the latest, by the way, this last week. In Nevada earlier this week, Sharpe has strongly denied it, but he's had to step down. Remember, he's on ESPN. He left. Some say he got fired. Others say it was kind of a mutual split. Him and Skip Bayless wasn't getting along at the end, but he's doing great there. But this stuff's starting to add up, not to mention the fact that the live stream or the audio of him supposedly having sex and said that he accidentally hit his live, which I don't think that he did that, but I think he did it on purpose. People was calling him gay and stuff, but he hit record or whatever, live streamed audio there. Was that last year? with Instagram Live or whatever. So that went viral. Then you had the incident, and this is non-sex incident, but you had the year before that, he had the incident where he almost got into it with, I want to say, Ja Morant's dad, or it might have been Ja Morant for the Memphis Grizzlies entourage or whatnot. This guy's wild, man. He's 56, okay? And I just don't understand Shannon Sharpe, per se. But it's going with these allegations, and these women are young women. I have looked her up. I think she's like also 19, 20 years old. I think that Sharpe, now listen, when I say what I'm going to say, I'm not here being way up for the podcast audience morally, and a guy like Shannon Sharpe is below me. I'm 43, single myself here. So if I had his kind of money, his kind of status, who's not to say that I might have the problem that he does? It sounds like he's got a sex problem. You know, I said that about Deshaun Watson with all the allegations on him, with all those 20-something sexual assault allegations against him with the defamation suits. And then I think he settled or whatnot. But anyways, that's what it sounds like. Why would you jeopardize something like this? You know, the allegations with him, with choking, all that. The audio, the whole sex thing's not going to come out, whatnot. For him to put himself in these high-risk situations when I think generally he's a good guy. It sounds like he's got a problem, you know? And if it's me, I wouldn't do it as a public relation thing. I'd do it for my own well-being. I'd go get some counseling, you know, and try to focus, because he's got the money and the wherewithal to go out and really concentrate and find one lady to keep him intact. You know, I've listened to the show before, him and Chad Johnson. He's put family through college. He's done a lot of good. And he's very respectful towards his guests on the Club Shay Shay thing. Monica had a funny line for him the other day after all this came about. She said, you need to get with an older lady that treats you right, blah, 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 blah. Now, I don't think, like I said about Bill Belichick, I don't think necessarily he's got to get with another woman 56. I just think he should look at, if I was his friend, you know, settling down with one lady, because, hey, his career's going good. He's doing what he loves to do. He played the game of football. He talks football every day. He interviews famous people, really good comedians. The Damon Wayans interview was very funny. He's got a really good podcast. It's right up there with Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson level. You know, I think it's all that. But he's jeopardizing this stuff, all because I think he's got a little bit of a problem. Nobody else has went that angle. I think I should. You know, would go that angle, as that seems to be what the issue is, you know. And like I said, I wouldn't make it a big PR move and tell the public, hey, I'm going to some kind of counseling for sex rehab. I'm not going to do the Tiger Woods thing. But I think he should, you know, because I'd hate to see him get himself into some trouble here. But, and then again, maybe it may be a shakedown, but there's too many accusations there where he's got to look at himself and say, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% an angel in this situation. You know, maybe I could have did X, Y, and Z different. You know, love this stuff. You know, what Chad says, good take. Thank you. Yeah, I love Shannon Sharpe, man. You know, it sounds like he's got an issue because he's got a lot to lose, man. He's got a lot to lose, and he's really good, really good. Love the show. But anyways, had to get that out there. Got a lot to talk about. You know, I really don't like missing this many shows because there's so much I wanted to bring on. I'm going to try to bring Rich Ferris back on, talk about the Titans draft and whatnot. Going back to the actual draft itself, I don't know if anybody really had the ideal draft. I didn't really read anything, but I did think to myself, the team didn't really address needs and put a lot of focus in on one side of the ball. Got a little aggressive. They traded up, was the Buffalo Bills. And sure enough, CBS agreed with me. They gave the Bills an A-plus draft, saying they had the best draft. Now, the Bills, they were in the AFC Championship game last year. They didn't have the highest pick. They were towards the end of the draft, in the end of the first round. But we know they needed defense more than anything. What did they give up? 34 points in the last game against Kansas City there on the road. We saw what they gave up in the first game. Not so much the second game. They beat Baltimore in the second game, but we saw what they gave up in the first game against the Baltimore Ravens, where they got ran on like nobody, got humiliated on Sunday Night Football. But, they've had a very quiet offseason. They quietly drafted Joey Bosa and they signed him as a free agent. But they drafted some guys here. Who did they draft here? This cornerback out of Kentucky with their 30th pick overall, Maxwell Harston. Got a defensive line from South Carolina. They traded up to get him. They moved up from 56 to 41st in a deal with the Chicago Bears. They select defensive tackle is exactly what they needed. TJ Sanders there. The Bills sent their 2 second-round picks, 56 and 42, and a 4th-round pick in exchange. The Bears' 41st pick, but they also get the Bears' 3rd-round pick, number 72, and a 7th-round pick, number 240. They're going for it. Right now, just looking at that, their first 5 picks, folks, you want to throw in the other 2nd-round pick, Landon Jackson, edge rusher from Arkansas, and another defensive line in the 4th round, by the way, 109, this Devin Walker from Kentucky. And then, of course, you took a cornerback, Jordan Hancock, out of Ohio State. First 5 picks, defense. And then this local radio station sitting there bad-mouthing Brandon Beane, the general manager, about them not getting a wide receiver. And I was with Brandon Beane there. Now, hey, listen, I think they were fine on that side of the ball. I think they had a young receiver. They signed somebody today. It wasn't a big name. I want to say it was Carter or somebody, but it wasn't nobody of huge nature and whatnot. But I actually liked their 2nd-round pick from last year. I messed around. I got a Keon Coleman out of Florida State, and of course, Khalif Shakur. But noted they also signed Josh Palmer, free agent, used to play with the LA Chargers. So you got a jump ball guy. You got a guy I think that can be a true number 1, excellent slot receiver. And they extended Khalif Shakur in the offseason, not to mention James Cook. Now, I don't think Cook has got his extension, but they've been talking about Cook. And you got Ray Davis coming in his 2nd year. And mind you, this is an offensive line that hardly allowed any sacks. I think they allowed the least sacks in the NFL last year, keeping a clean pocket there for Josh Allen. So this is the best Buffalo team since they drafted Josh Allen back in 2018. They are very much, obviously, you got to stay healthy. That's a story for any team in the league. They are very much primed and ready to make their Super Bowl run here in 25. Okay. How far can they go? I don't know. Everything is about injury. Everything is about how these young players play. But, it's easier to build a defense than it is an offense. And it's a much cheaper to build. We saw what the Rams did. Their whole defense is practically guys on rookie contracts, per se. Okay? So they actually have the draft I like the most. I liked what Cleveland did with getting the trade and getting the extra 1st-round pick But I don't like the fact that they had drafted 2 quarterbacks there. And it looks like Shedeur was kind of shoved on them. But maybe it could be a huge blessing in disguise and work out. I mean, it looks like the owner pushed for that. I like the fact they got Mason Graham with the first, 5th overall pick. And they've got another pick next year. And Jacksonville, if they don't play well, they have a really high pick next year. They've got a lot of picks that they help keep a lot of players on rookie contracts so they can withstand this, Deshaun Watson contract here, getting the best of them. I'll get more into Tennessee tomorrow. I did like the receiver out of Stanford that Tennessee taken, I'm going to say in the 4th round. Not so sure about those other receivers. Not so sure about the defensive end from UCLA. Never heard of the guy. Same thing with the 3rd round pick that they traded with Seattle for and got the safety from Penn State. That guy's coming back from a torn ACL, but he looks to be back fine. But still, he's a pretty high pick, being a 3rd round pick. You're picking this guy to play and contribute right away. Probably comment a little bit more on them tomorrow with the Bad New Yorker. Okay. A few quick takes here on the NBA playoffs. Obviously, the biggest surprise, in my opinion, well, you could say a 7 seed beating up on the 2 seed. You could say a 7 seed beating up on the 2 seed. Like Golden State, but Golden State championship experience, been playing well since they got Jimmy Butler. I said they would win that series. They are winning that series. Had that edge on Carlos. Now, of course, I did pick the Clippers to beat. I picked them to beat this Denver team, but Denver won the pivotal game 5. And Westbrook, double-edged sword. He got the good side of Westbrook helping them win a game a few nights ago. And, of course, you had the jam there at the very end. They seem to be better finishers down the stretch than the L.A. Chargers there. You could see that Kawhi's nursing that knee. They probably need another scorer per se. Harden seemed to be wearing down. Still got a shot, but I think that usually, I want to say it's like 80% of the time, the winner of Game 5 usually wins these series. So it looks like Denver will move on. We'll get to see more of the Joker play, and I'm cool with that. But the biggest surprise, folks, is this Timberwolves team who's going to play the Lakers again tonight. Now, I think the Lakers will probably push them back to Minnesota for Game 6 tonight. But, and of course, the Lakers are favored by 5.5 points. But Minnesota's playing just exactly how I said they should play and the contributions that they would get. They kept their big in there, got their center play there, but they got the help off the bench there that they needed with Daniels there, and of course Naz Reid there per se. The Lakers don't have the depth. I mean, J.J. Redick did not bench a starter. He did not rest the starter in the second half, and they were up by 12 points at one time. So that tells you how much trust they have in their bench. I mean, you're depending on a guy that's still not quite in 100% shape. And Luka Doncic, which I thought he would just be able to carry him. That's the only reason I picked the Lakers to win that series. And which I'm pleasantly surprised, don't get me wrong. I want to see Anthony Edwards move forward. I think they're a better watch than the Lakers. I'm tired of hearing the mainstream media go on and on and on about the Lakers here. But they just don't have that inside presence there. Rudy Gobert, who I was trying to think of earlier, he's clogging that middle up. They're not finishing games. They're playing well. It's a great series. Because Lakers seem to be in control in both of these games early on from last Friday and then last Sunday. And then, of course, Minnesota closes this thing out at the very end. So it looks like that they're going to lose this series, and the winner will play that Golden State winner, which, the Rockets simply cannot score. You know, they cannot score consistently. They need a score. There's been talks about maybe Giannis going there and whatnot. I don't know about that, but they're going to get some score. They need some type of some scoring by a veteran per se. That is exactly what this Rockets team needs. But Golden State and Minnesota, that'll be another good matchup for Minnesota because Golden State has the same problems that the Lakers have. They just don't have a big. And, we saw them lose that last game at the end of the season and put them in that 7 seed. But they lost to the Clippers there because Zubac, the center there for the Clippers, really gave him a lot of trouble. And I think the same thing would happen with Minnesota in this next round, the way I see it right now. Knicks kind of going as expected. Thought they'd probably win this in 6. Is going 6. Thibodeau wearing these starters down. Only reason they took Brunson out was he was hurt on Sunday. Then, of course, they lost back in New York. Was it last night or night before, whatnot? As expected. They're fatigued. I do like the play of Towns, but he just cannot get back on defense. That was a big shot he hit last Sunday to win up there in Detroit. But I don't know who they play next. I don't know if it's Cleveland or Boston, but I don't like them against either one of them, So this feels like a Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr situation where Jackson changes the culture, gets them to play defense, gets them play all out. And when he took over for the Warriors 10, 12 years ago, whatever, got to the first round, second round of playoffs. Teams seemed to level off. Then they went and fired Jackson, brought in Steve Kerr, took them over the top. Same thing I'm seeing with the Knicks. Thibodeau, change the culture. Now you need a good X's and O guy, get more people the ball there. You need a Phil Jackson, somebody there to put some kind of offense in there where it's not all hero. And it's gotten a little bit better these last few games, don't get me wrong. The passing has got a little bit more crisp, but it's still a lot of Jalen Brunson go up and get a bucket, Jalen Brunson do hero ball, or somebody a rebound, do a crazy shot there, have your 7-footer out there 30, 35 feet, your Karl Anthony Towns there, and let him take the shot. Go figure. But I think that's probably the next step for the Knicks. So Carlos is going to be patting himself on the back saying he was right. I was just saying I was hoping that maybe Thibodeau, maybe he could evolve between a few years ago taking this team over and now. And it looks like he's not. Wearing the starters out too much and not putting enough offensive efficiency, not going out and bringing in an assistant coach, Tex Winter, who used to coach under Phil Jackson, and put some kind of offense where you got more people touching the ball and you got fluidity in the offense. I'm watching Winning Time over the story about the early Showtime Lakers with Jack, I think his name was Jack McEwen, before he got hurt in his really bad bike accident, put in the Showtime Lakers offense. He's really the guy that orchestrated that. With Magic and Kareem and those guys in 1980. Remember when they won that championship and went on, had that big rival with the Celtics in the 80s there that Pat Riley basically just ran with as an assistant there. Really good story. I'm watching it over again. It's pretty good. I had them recorded. I only caught bits and pieces of it last time. Really good stuff there. But that's what the Knicks need, So anyways, folks, I know that was a mouthful, Chad. If you guys like the show, share the show. Tomorrow, I'll be back with the Mad New Yorker. We'll get our opinions on the two New York teams. Get opinions on the Shedeur situation. And also, we'll talk a little bit of the Titans and whatnot and get his comments on where the playoffs are at this point. Appreciate you there, Chad. Appreciate you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get some water and chill out. There's a lot of information there in 1 hour. So, anyways, have a good night, everybody. I'll see you live here tomorrow, same time, same place, here on the Real Sports Scope.